At my usual bar, sipping on my regular whiskey on the rocks, I was suddenly addressed by a familiar voice from behind. "Wait, what? Are you kidding me? Why are you here of all places?" I turned around with a feeling of disgust as if I were scratching a glass with my nails. To my surprise, it was my ex-wife, Olivia. "Olivia, what brings you here?" That was my reply. "Well, I like the ambience of this place, and I've taken a liking to it. It's a bit pricey, but my husband earns well, so the high prices suit us just fine. You, on the other hand, don't earn so much, so coming here must be quite a stretch for you, right? It's pathetic to see you trying to punch above your weight. Or perhaps you decided to blow all your savings for today. Poor thing. I could buy you a drink out of pity if you'd like." Olivia stood there, looking down at me as I sat, and went on a tirade all by herself. "Wearing such a cheap shirt, you really do look ridiculous." Despite my intention to ignore Olivia's remarks, I couldn't help but feel slightly irritated. However, I knew better than to lose my cool, as that would only play into her hands. I just wished she would leave me alone and move to another seat. My pleasant time enjoying my drink was completely ruined. Then, to my dismay, Olivia decided to sit next to me. "Feeling all right? You're probably still stuck in that dreary little salon, working as a hired hairstylist, living on a meager salary for life. How pitiful. On the contrary, my husband is about to be promoted to manager. Unlike you, he's a competent individual. It's astonishing how different you two are, despite being brothers. I really made the right choice by leaving you." Olivia continued to spew her venomous words. Being bombarded with so much sarcasm, I almost started to wonder if this was some kind of twisted service mentality. It might be Olivia's own way of providing entertainment, trying to amuse me. No, that couldn't be it. I shook my head to clear those thoughts and reminded myself once again of how terrible my ex-wife truly was. After all, Olivia was the woman who, while married to me, seduced my brother and then divorced me to marry him. The fact that such an awful person exists outside of TV dramas still sends shivers down my spine. Wanting nothing to do with her, I resolved to keep my responses as neutral as possible. "So Noah is moving up in the world. Congratulations." That's what I said to Olivia. "Heh, such a pitiful younger brother." Olivia continued to look down on me with disdain. Then, a regular patron of the bar, Ava, who had been silently listening to our entire conversation, spoke up. Ava and I often met at this bar and shared stories with each other. "Excuse me, I don't know what your relationship with Michael is, but you sure are arrogant. Listening to you is quite unpleasant. I don't know who you think you are, but do you even know anything about him, Michael, who's sitting right here?" I hurriedly said to Ava. "Ava, it's okay. There's no need for you to say anything." But Ava, tilting her wine glass with a triumphant look, said to me, "You should just speak up. Why not put this superficial, vile woman in her place?" Hearing this, Olivia raised her voice. "What the? Who do you think you are, madam? It's rude to speak like that to someone you've just met. Mind your own business." Ignoring Olivia's words, Ava continued. "Rude, that's funny coming from you, who's far ruder. But go ahead, take a good look with those murky eyes of yours. Mason, show this rude woman the magazine from earlier, please." Ava called out to Mason, the bar owner. "The magazine, right. Here it is." Mason placed an issue of the internationally renowned fashion magazine, Beauty Woman, abbreviated as BW, on the counter where the three of us were seated. "Wait, what is this?" Olivia was taken aback as she looked at the cover of the magazine. "My name is Michael. I grew up in a town just outside of New York, in a family of 4, my father, mother, brother Noah, and myself. My father was known to be good at drawing since he was a child and aimed for art school after high school, but After failing the entrance exams 3 times, he gave up on his dream. Having entered the workforce with just a high school diploma, he struggled to find a well-paying job. My mother, who was quite naive and sheltered, married my father by chance and resented him for their life of poverty and his lack of higher education. Because of this, Noah and I were raised with our mother constantly drilling into us that getting into a high-ranking school is the most important thing in life. Noah sincerely believed in what we were taught and never neglected his studies, even during the busy times of club activities in middle school, eventually advancing to a high school with a high academic standard. In high school, he maintained top grades and went on to attend a prestigious university, from which he graduated. However, I was not influenced by either my mother or Noah. Despite giving up on art school, my father would paint as a hobby on weekend and visit exhibitions of acquaintances who were painters. I was influenced by my father and shaped by his character. I'm going to check out some paintings at a gallery in Chelsea. Want to come along? I was often invited by my father on Sundays like this, and while my brother Noah had no interest at all, I was fascinated by art, so I frequently joined him on such outings. My father had many acquaintances in the art world, and as a child, I had many opportunities to meet artists who were friends of my father. This influenced my decision to become a hairdresser, leading me to enroll in a beauty school instead of high school after graduating from middle school. Most of my classmates went on to high school, and it's not that I didn't consider it. I thought that following my mother's advice to graduate from a good university and secure a job at a stable company was a perfectly fine path. But since Noah had already taken that path, I felt I didn't need to, and there was another reason. When I was in 9th grade, I overheard my mother saying to my father late at night, "How are we going to afford Michael's further education? With just Noah's tuition and tutor fees, our finances are already stretched thin." Though I felt guilty for eavesdropping, that became the deciding factor for me to feel that it was okay not to go to university. Admittedly, beauty school also required tuition, but I managed by working part-time to cover the costs and my personal expenses. I enjoyed my studies in beauty, which seemed to suit me well. Therefore, I never doubted that I was leading a successful life, and at 18, I was content with my job as an apprentice hairdresser, even though the pay was low. 2 years after entering the workforce, I was recognized as a hairdresser and started living independently. Life was tough, but manageable if I kept my expenses in check. Then, a turning point came after a class reunion when we turned 18. "It's been a while, Michael." I was approached like this by Olivia, who was a classmate in elementary and middle school. Hi. I didn't remember her. No wonder. Despite attending the same elementary and middle schools, we were only in the same class once. And that one time was merely because she transferred to my school during the 3rd term of 3rd grade. In other words, we were only classmates for about 2 months. Forgotten by you, Michael. That's a shock. Olivia's words made me feel guilty. At 18, she was very beautiful, and given my work-focused, romance-free lifestyle, it's true that she caught my attention a bit. She asked for my contact, kept in touch, and even asked me out, so before I knew it, we were dating. She had a strong desire to marry, and after some contemplation, we registered our marriage at 23. As a hairdresser in a small suburban salon, I wasn't financially well off. We couldn't afford a lavish wedding, nor could we live luxuriously after marriage. I thought it would be better to wait until my income increased, but Olivia wanted to marry right now and wouldn't listen to reason, so I resolved myself to it. I wasn't living a wealthy life yet, but I was determined to gradually increase my income. After all, it wasn't just about me anymore. I had a family now. After registering our marriage, I dedicated even more time to studying beauty-related subjects in my spare time. The owner of the salon where I worked even discussed a possible promotion to manager, leaving me constantly pondering whether to accept or seek opportunities elsewhere. It happened just as things were coming to a head. About a year after we got married. "Hi, we need to talk." I received a message from Noah, with whom I didn't usually communicate much. Wondering what it was about, I replied, "What's up?" and he asked to meet in person, so we arranged to meet after work the next day. At the cafe where we agreed to meet, not only Noah was waiting, but, to my surprise, Olivia was there too. I came to talk to Noah today. Why is Olivia here?" I asked, completely baffled by the situation, and took a seat opposite Noah and Olivia. "I'm really sorry, Michael." Noah apologized deeply to me. Olivia remained silent. "What are you apologizing for?" I felt a strange discomfort in the air, making even the coffee tasteless. I should be the one to say it, not Noah. Olivia spoke up. I couldn't believe my ears. "I'm sorry, Michael. I want to divorce you and be with Noah," Olivia stated firmly. I was utterly confused. "I don't understand what you're saying." That was all I could muster in response. "I've grown to dislike our marriage, and I've fallen in love with Noah," Olivia explained. "Wait, Olivia, do you realize what you're saying? You're married to me, right? Falling in love with my brother. Don't you think that's wrong? How did things end up like this?" I was lost, unable to figure out who was in the wrong or what went wrong. "I know it's wrong to be with your wife, but Olivia's passion moved me too," Noel admitted. At that moment, something snapped inside me. I had resolved to protect my wife as family once we decided to marry, even though I was still unreliable, aiming to improve gradually. But Olivia had decided on her own to divorce me. And she involved my brother. I recalled her frequent late returns, but I too often came home late from work and thought she was just busy with her job. Was she meeting Noah all this time? I didn't know how it happened, nor did I want to know anymore. The fact was, my brother and wife were sitting in front of me, both saying the same thing. "Fine, do as you please." Disgusted, I left the cafe. However, since Olivia and I lived together, she returned home after I did. The atmosphere was awkward, but I confronted her. "I wish you had spoken up if you were dissatisfied with me." Olivia replied, "I like you as a person, Michael, but I prefer Noah because he has a higher education and income." I was trembling with anger. Yet, knowing that women might seek education and income, I tried to calm myself, thinking it was inevitable. "Sorry for not earning more, but did you have to go about it this way?" I managed to keep my cool as I said this. Olivia simply stated, "I'm not to blame," and went to her room. Watching her leave, I felt utterly indifferent. Even if I was at fault for not providing enough, wanting to remarry my brother. And if Olivia only saw Noah as a man with high education and income, it seemed like she was just using him conveniently. I thought Noah was crazy to consider being with his brother's wife, but he was supposed to be a serious, hard-working person. True, he was stubborn and strong-willed because of his earnestness. I worried that Noah was being manipulated by Olivia. "Noah, think it over again. Olivia said she wants to marry you because you are well-educated and have a high income. If she doesn't truly love you, I'm worried about the future." I messaged him that night. But his reply was disappointing. "It's uncool to say such things just because you want to keep Olivia." I was disheartened. I had no lingering feelings for Olivia. In fact, I doubted her character. So, I wanted to warn my brother to prevent him from becoming another victim. But this was ultimately a matter of personal judgment between adults, so I felt I couldn't say anything more to Noah. And so, I agreed to the divorce. I felt neither loneliness nor regret. Instead, I felt a sense of relief. To avoid worrying our parents and Olivia's, I assured them, "We've discussed this thoroughly and are all in agreement, so please don't worry." After the divorce was finalized, I never saw Noah or Olivia again. I made sure to visit my family home on different days to avoid crossing paths with them. And then, 3 years went by. By that time, I was living my days hardly ever thinking about my ex-wife and brother. For a while after the divorce, I was frequently overwhelmed by a sense of unbearable sadness and went through some tough times. I felt no sorrow whatsoever for losing Olivia. It was the memory of my wife and brother wanting to marry each other during our marriage that made me distrustful of people for a while. However, time is the greatest healer, and after 3 years, my wounds had healed and the flashbacks had ceased. I was living a peaceful and happy life. Then one day, after work, I stopped by my usual bar. Little did I know at the time that something unbelievable was about to happen here. As I sipped my usual whiskey on the rocks at the counter, I was suddenly addressed by a familiar voice from behind. "Wait, what? Are you kidding me? Why are you here of all places?" I turned around with a feeling of disgust as if I were scratching a glass with my nails. To my surprise, it was my ex-wife, Olivia. "Olivia, what brings you here?" That was my reply. "Well, I like the ambience of this bar, and it's a bit pricey, but my husband earns well, so it suits us just fine. You, on the other hand, must be stretching your budget to come here. Trying to act above your station is just pathetic. Or did you decide to splurge all your savings today? Poor thing. I could buy you a drink out of pity if you'd like." Olivia stood there, looking down at me seated, and rambled on by herself. I chose to remain silent, listening to her without engaging, knowing that arguing would only bring me down to her level. Undeterred, Olivia continued. "Wearing such a cheap shirt, you really do look ridiculous." Despite my intention to ignore her, I couldn't help but feel a bit irritated by her comments. However, getting angry would only play into her hands, so I kept my cool. All I wanted was for her to leave me alone and move to another seat. My pleasant time enjoying my drink was completely ruined. Then, unbelievably, Olivia decided to sit next to me. "2 Kir Royales, please." Olivia ordered from Mason, the bartender, and within 3 minutes, 2 Kir Royales were placed in front of us with a thud. "Here you go." Handed one of the drinks by Olivia, I nearly fell off my chair. "Wait, this is for me." Surprised, I said that, and Olivia replied, "Of course, it's not like I'm going to drink both at the same time. I'm not really into sweet drinks. Mixing sweet liqueur with sweet juice, I just don't get it," I said to myself, truly perplexed. But not wanting to cause a scene by refusing Olivia's offer, I simply said, "Thank you," and accepted the glass filled with a murky-colored drink. Doing all right, still slaving away in that rundown little salon, I bet. Living on such a meager salary is just pitiful. Unlike you, my husband is about to be promoted to manager. It's amazing how 2 brothers can be so different. I really made the right choice by leaving you." Olivia went on a tirade all by herself, again laden with sarcasm. Being bombarded with so much sarcasm, I almost started to wonder if this was some kind of twisted service mentality. It might be Olivia's own way of providing entertainment, trying to amuse me. Or maybe not. I shook my head to clear it and reminded myself of just how terrible my ex-wife really was. After all, Olivia was the woman who, while married to me, seduced my brother and then divorced me to remarry him. The fact that such an awful person exists not just in dramas but in reality still sends shivers down my spine. Wanting nothing more to do with her, I resolved to keep my responses as non-committal as possible. "No is moving up in the world. Congratulations." I said that to Olivia. What a pitiful younger brother. Olivia continued to look down on me with disdain. Then, Ava, a regular patron who had been silently listening to our entire conversation, decided to speak up. Ava and I often met at this bar and would share stories with each other. Hey, you. I don't know what your relationship with Michael is, but you sure are arrogant. It's quite unpleasant to listen to. I don't know what your status is, but do you even know anything about him, Michael, sitting here? I quickly said to Ava. Ava, it's okay. There's no need to say anything more. But Ava, tilting her wine glass with a triumphant look, said to me, Michael should just speak up. Why not put this superficial, vile woman in her place? Hearing this, Olivia raised her voice. What the? Who do you think you are, madam? It's rude to speak like that to someone you've just met. Mind your own business. Ignoring Olivia's words, Ava continued. Rude, that's funny coming from you, who's far ruder. But go ahead, take a good look with those murky eyes of yours. Mason, show this rude woman the magazine from earlier, please. Ava called out to Mason, the bar owner. The magazine, right. Here it is. Mason placed an issue of the internationally renowned fashion magazine, Beauty Woman, abbreviated as BW, on the counter where the three of us were seated. Wait, what is this? Olivia was taken aback as she looked at the cover of the magazine. That's right, the man on the cover is Michael. Ava said with even more pride. No way, isn't this a photo with the global music icon, Maria Smith? What's going on? Olivia, in panic, flipped through the magazine. Wait, a 10-page feature on Maria and Michael. Why? Olivia frantically flipped back and forth through the magazine, looking at the articles and photos. Then she demanded an explanation from me. Explain this, Michael. Ava began to explain on my behalf. As you can see, Michael has become the exclusive hair and makeup artist for the world-famous singer Maria. His talent has been highly praised, and he's been offered to do hair and makeup for models and fashion shows by famous designers who appear in Paris Fashion Week. You, with your dowdy fashion sense, probably only know about domestic matters and are clueless about the global scene. Michael, the hair and makeup artist, is a celebrity worldwide. While listening, Olivia kept muttering, "No way," in disbelief. Then she exclaimed, "But Michael, you were just a hairstylist in a small suburban salon. How did you rise so high all of a sudden?" "I participated in various contests while working as a hairstylist, even when we were married. I talked to you about it, but you looked down on me, didn't listen, and showed no interest. I didn't make it in domestic contests, but when I took a chance on international ones, I was recognized. That's how I got noticed by a famous hair and makeup artist, trained under them, and then entered bigger contests. I won a grand prize in one of them, which led to my role as Maria's exclusive artist." Though I thought it unnecessary to explain all this to Olivia, Ava had already shared so much about me, so I reluctantly added my own explanation. "That's amazing, Michael," Olivia said, then added, "As expected of my ex-husband, I'm his ex-wife. Let's meet up as exes sometime. For starters, I'd love to get Maria's autograph. Can you introduce me to her in person?" I was astounded by her sudden change in attitude upon learning of my connections with famous people. Truly superficial. "You really are despicable. Stay away from Michael. I don't care if you're his ex-wife or whatever. You have no relation to him now. And by the way, you called Michael's shirt cheap earlier, but it's from a famous brand. You can't even recognize quality." Ava raised her voice. But Olivia, undeterred, said, "Hey, Michael, actually, I've been regretting it. I think you were the better man after all. Noah has been all about work lately and doesn't pay attention to me. I'm lonely. Please, I'm going to divorce Noah anyway. So won't you give us another chance?" While she intertwined her arm with mine, I instinctively shook her off, saying, "Stop it." Ava then remarked, "Michael, You really shook her off from the bottom of your heart. Well, of course. There's no way you'd get back together with such a woman, because... Just then, as Ava was about to continue, she exclaimed, "Speak of the devil," and I turned around in response to her shout, only to see a familiar figure. Emma. The woman I called Emma was my girlfriend. Emma, don't get the wrong idea. Michael did nothing wrong. It's this woman who's at fault. She came onto him unilaterally. Ava explained on my behalf. Yes, I saw everything. You're Olivia, Michael's ex-wife, right? He's shown me a photo of you before. I know how much Michael truly despises you. I've been watching from a distance for a while now. You're really shameless. Emma said that. Ava laughed heartily, saying, "The always quiet and kind Emma, speaking such sharp words." And Olivia, turning pale, said, "Wait a minute, Emma, isn't she Michael's childhood friend?" Emma was taken aback. "Wait, how does she know about me? That's scary." Then, a familiar male voice spoke up. "Olivia, what was that earlier? Asking Michael to start over, getting so close to him." Noah, my brother and Olivia's husband, stood there. "What, Noah? When did you get here?" Olivia was flustered. "I saw you coming onto Michael. I heard everything. We're getting a divorce, you deceitful person," Noah said, his voice trembling. Then, turning to Michael, "I know I wronged you by marrying Olivia in such a manner, but I've finally seen the light. I was naive, fooled by Olivia's convenient lies and deceit. I feel ashamed of myself. I sincerely apologize for hurting you, my brother. I truly am sorry." "It's okay. I don't hold a grudge. If you've come to your senses, that's good, but maybe you should be more discerning about women," I said, and he replied, "You're right. I'll reflect on this. I'll start over after the divorce." Olivia, in panic, clung to Noah's arm. "No way. I won't accept a divorce. What are you saying, Noah? Didn't we swear our love to each other?" But Noah, with a look of disgust, shook off her arm. "Don't touch me. Regarding the divorce, I'll have my lawyer contact you." Olivia was in tears. But, that's so cruel. I've loved you since we were kids. When I transferred in elementary school, you were so kind to me. I dreamt of marrying you someday, and when we met again at the reunion as adults, I was so happy we could date and then marry. And this Emma, she was just a girl from another school who attended the same swimming class as you in elementary school, right? I always saw you were returning from the class with her, and now you're with her. That's so unfair. I loved you more." Olivia sobbed as she spoke. I was dumbfounded. "Then why did you decide to divorce me and remarry my brother while we were married? That's just cruel, isn't it? Do you understand how I felt when I was betrayed by both my wife and brother? Have you ever considered anyone else's feelings? You just want whatever you desire at the moment, right? That's childish thinking. No, even children can understand other people's pain. After our divorce, I struggled with insomnia because of the emotional pain. Then, through a friend from my hometown, I reconnected with Emma, who comforted and supported me during my tough times. She thought about my pain with me, and now, Olivia, you've hurt my brother Noah. In front of him, you came onto me, asking to start over. How many times do you need to hurt people before you're satisfied? You're truly the worst." As I vented, Olivia tearfully said, "But it's natural to want a husband who is capable and earns well, right? I left you for Noah because he had a higher income, but now you have become successful and famous. So naturally, I want to get back with you, right?" In the next moment, Ava burst into laughter, saying, "Michael and Noah, this woman is unbelievable. Cut ties with her quickly." Then, turning to Olivia, Ava said, "Olivia, I can somewhat understand your feelings, but fundamentally, you're wrong as a person. If you want, I'm always here at this bar. Come and see me, and I'll give you a thorough scolding to straighten you out." Then, Mason interjected, "Once you enter Abba's lecture hell, even crying children go silent." Hearing this, I also added, I know, I've seen several people shaken by her lecture of hell right here. Mason and I chuckled together, but Noah and Olivia were frozen with expressionless faces. I'll be staying at a hotel for the next 3 days. Leave the house within that time. I'll proceed with the divorce proceedings starting tonight, Noah said to Olivia. Realizing he was serious, Olivia silently settled the bill with Mason and left the bar alone. You did well to speak up. I roughly get the story. So you were deceived by that woman for a long time, right? Well, your sin is not forgivable. You have no choice but to reflect deeply. Michael here is a magnanimous man, so I think he'll forgive you. For now, buy Michael a drink, and me too, while you're at it, Ava said, looking at Noah. Understood. Mason, please get a drink for Michael, Ava, and also for Emma, Noah responded. Then, I made Noah sit 1 seat away from me and Ava, and I moved next to Emma at the counter. Today was supposed to be the anniversary of my marriage to Olivia. I never imagined it would turn out like this, Noah said, dejected. Ava silently comforted him by patting his shoulder. But Noah, you're stubborn once you make up your mind. If you've decided to start over after leaving Olivia, I'm sure happiness will come your way, I encouraged him. I'm sorry for being such a terrible brother who hurt you. Thank you, Noah apologized. Well, it's all good now. The evil spirit is gone. Cheers. Ava raised her cocktail glass high, given by Noah. More importantly, today is a significant day for Michael. Forget about Noah. If you're truly repentant as a brother, celebrate his new beginning, Ava said to Noah. A new beginning? Noah asked that question. Yes, actually, I'm moving to France for a while because of work, so I took a small box out of my pocket. Emma, please come with me. Let's get married. I promise to make you happy. Inside the box was a ring. I had told Emma about moving to France, but it was the first time I asked her to come with me. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she answered strongly, Thank you, I'd be happy to come with you. I'll support you as your wife for life. In the next moment, Mason quietly started clapping. Noticing this, Ava stood up and shouted, Bravo, clapping loudly. The other customers in the bar also turned to us and joined in the applause. When I glanced over, Noah was crying tears of joy. Half a year passed, and I had expanded my work and network in France, achieving great success as a hair and makeup artist. Emma and I were living happily together. And then, after a long while, I returned to the US for a visit and went to my parents' house. My mother said something like this. The other day, Olivia's parents came over to apologize. We were worried when you and Olivia divorced and she married Noah. But you told us we all agreed on it, so don't worry. After talking with her parents, we finally understood the whole story. It was quite a mess. They seemed really sorry for raising Olivia to be so selfish. Well, I always thought you boys lacked judgment in women. My mother said this and laughed. She raised us with a belief in the absolute importance of a high education, but now she's become more understanding and supports my career. Of course, my father is fully supportive of me too. By the way, Noah seems to be dating a woman his age that he met at work. I hope it works out for him this time, like it did for you and Emma. My mother shared this news with me. I was happy to hear it. I want Noah to be happy too. And now, even for Olivia. I hope she learns from her mistakes so her parents don't have to apologize for her again at their age. Everyone makes wrong choices in life. Of course, it's better not to make mistakes, but what matters is how you handle them afterward. I believe not everything in my future will be smooth sailing, but I'll cherish each moment and move forward. I have a place in France. There's still so much more to explore. Leaving my parents' house, I looked up at the sky, ready to board the plane. Seeing my surprised face, Jason, the head of the sales department, said while trying to suppress his laughter, "Sorry, I totally forgot your existence." Everyone around us burst into laughter at his words. I dazedly stared at Jason. I was the person who planned a company trip, yet how come there was no plane ticket for me? "Sorry, but there's no seat for you. You might as well head back now." Watching Jason laughing his heart out, I regretted not taking care of the travel arrangements myself until the end. But it seemed that Jason had planned this all along. I was completely set up. On my way home from the airport, I sent an email to a certain person. They are probably on the plane with the rest of the sales department by now, so this email won't reach them immediately, but that's fine. I've been transferred a lot more than other employees. The reason is that they wanted me to have tough experiences and get to know various jobs within the company. Because of this, people including Jason started to see me as a liability that couldn't stick to any department, but it was all at the behest of a certain person. My name is Michael. I'm a company employee in my 40s. My parents divorced when I was a child, and I lived with my mother and grandmother in my mother's hometown. My mother was always busy with work, so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother when I came home from school. When I was doing my homework in the living room, my grandmother would bring me snacks and drinks. We would eat them together and chat about what happened at school that day or just have some light conversation. Among the snacks my grandmother prepared, my favorite was a certain brand of cookies. They were sweet, cinnamon, and had a satisfying crunch, and they were both our favorites. Sometimes my grandmother would buy cookies from different brands, but we always ended up saying that the usual ones were better. I loved spending the time with my grandmother. My mom was always busy with work, so she often came home late at night. But having my grandma around meant I never felt lonely, and I admired my mom for her hard work. I wanted to work hard like my mother and be kind to others like my grandmother when I grew up. And so, I grew up with those thoughts in mind. My mother really wanted me to go to college, although it wasn't easy. Consequently, I managed to graduate from a college thanks to scholarships and other programs. I was interested in business management, so I chose the subject as my major. After graduating, I got a job at the cookies manufacturer I always loved. Having an accounting certification, I was assigned to the accounting department as a new graduate. Being assigned to the accounting department as a new graduate is thought to be difficult, but it seems I was placed there because there happened to be an opening. Though I joined a company because I liked its products, I ended up in a department unrelated to them, but that's just how things turned out. I was placed in the accounting department, so I had no choice but to do my best there. Fortunately, the department was full of serious people, but my colleagues were sincere, and they made a comfortable place for me. The accounting department might have seemed stiff and gloomy from the outside, but Alex, my mentor, taught me the job carefully, and my boss, Michael, was kind. While learning the job, I even acquired a business accounting certification, but 4 years after joining, I was transferred to the product planning department. The atmosphere in the product planning department was completely different from the accounting department. It was filled with curious people, and there was always a buzz of conversation about recent societal trends and personal hobbies. I am not good at speaking. Even when I was struggling to find words, there were people who would understand what I wanted to say and draw it out from me. I was initially surprised by everyone's high communication skills. The job required creativity and analytical skills, so I became interested in the latest trends and learned about marketing tasks. Our team's proposal had finally been approved, and we were all celebrating. Then, I was transferred to the production management department. The motto of production management was to avoid stockouts without holding too much inventory. This job, which involved everything from procuring raw materials to shipping finished products, was appealing because it allowed me to be directly involved with my favorite snacks. Since this department required communication with many other departments, I was able to interact with people I had never dealt with before. It expanded my network. Just when I was starting to feel antsy about becoming a mid-level employee, possibly responsible for training juniors, I was transferred to the marketing department. I would often do market research while in the product planning department, but figuring out how to sell was the job of the marketing department. This department required management skills and the ability to see the big picture. It's been a while since I graduated from college, but I remember there was a marketing department within the business school I attended. Although it wasn't my major, I took some courses on marketing strategies. After all, management is considered a higher concept than marketing, and it's said that the goals of management and marketing are aligned. Marketing involves efforts directed towards customers, while management involves efforts considering the entire company's future. Touching on management-related subjects after such a long time, I found management studies challenging yet enjoyable. There was a great sense of accomplishment when the sales strategies I came up with increased the awareness of our products, and I wished to stay in this department where I could apply what I learned in business school. Around the time I turned 40, I was transferred to the sales department. This was my fourth time facing the challenges of adapting to a new department since joining the company. Like before, I believed that there would be new discoveries and joys in the sales department, but this time things didn't go as smoothly. On my first day in the new department, I arrived a bit earlier than usual. I always do this on the first day to greet everyone and organize my desk. When I got to the sales department, it seemed the boss hadn't arrived yet, so I asked someone nearby for my desk and started to get settled. However, even when the start time came, the boss was nowhere to be seen. I thought it was common for superiors to arrive early on the day a new person joins for introductions, but it seemed the head of this department was different. About 30 minutes after the start time, Jason, the department head, appeared with a coffee in hand. I immediately went to Jason's desk to greet him. "Good morning. My name is Michael, and I have been assigned to the sales department starting today. I look forward to working with you." Upon my greeting, Jason responded with "Oh," as if he had just remembered about me. "Nice to meet you. Michael, you came from the marketing department, right?" Jason said this while looking over the documents presumably passed to him by HR. You've been bouncing around different departments, right? What's the deal? Were you being passed around as a burden?" He said this while frowning and roughly placing the documents down. I was taken aback by being called a burden to my face on our first meeting. Indeed, I have often been transferred every 3 to 4 years. Looking around, I saw many who had been in the same department for over 5 years, and I sometimes wondered why I was the only one frequently transferred. However, I always tried to do my best in every department I was assigned to. I never saw myself as a burden to the company. "Well, whatever. Hey everyone, can I have your attention for a moment?" Jason called out to everyone in the sales department as if nothing had happened. All eyes turned to me. "This is Michael, who joined the sales department today. He came from the marketing department, but it seems like he's been shuffled around a lot and couldn't fit in anywhere, making him somewhat of a burden. Tried to get along with him, but only to a certain extent." Laughter erupted at Jason's humorous introduction. And there, I realized I was completely out of my element. I was incredulous at the overtly malicious introduction and looked at Jason. He smirked at me with a nasty grin and ended the conversation with "That's the situation." I should have responded properly, but I was so shocked by the blatant hostility that I couldn't say a word. I've never been confrontational, but in all the departments I've been, people warmly welcomed me, and as we worked together, our relationships deepened gradually. First impressions are important. I should have countered Jason's words with a joke, but it was my mistake not to. They must have thought I wouldn't talk back no matter what. As expected, I became the target of Jason's harassment from that day on. The following days were gloomy. I've worked at this company for nearly 20 years, but I've never experienced anything like this. Given the laughter at Jason's remarks yesterday, it seemed best to assume there were no allies in this department. A mentor was assigned to teach me the ropes of the sales job, but perhaps because of Jason, there was a certain distance. Observing the department more closely, I noticed everyone seemed overly cautious around Jason. Although I was unfortunate to become Jason's target this time, I wondered if there were others in the department who had been targeted like me before. I casually asked Brandon, the senior mentor, "Why did the person before me leave?" Brandon hesitated with his words. "Why are you asking something like that?" "Well, I was just wondering if there was an issue with Jason." Upon hearing my words, Brandon glanced around and then whispered, "I feel bad for you, Michael, but once he's got his sights set on someone, it's over. The harassment continues until the person leaves. It seems Jason targets people like me who don't fight back and repeatedly harasses them. It might be his way of blowing off steam, but it's unbearable for those on the receiving end. So, my predecessor left because of that. Jason is watching." Brandon didn't say more, but his words were enough for me to understand what was happening in this department. Jason was originally the ace of the sales department and climbed up to the position of manager at a young age. However, being good at the job doesn't necessarily make someone a good boss. It seems the more overbearing Jason became, the more power he got. If you upset him, he'd lash out or relentlessly corner someone. He would push those he disliked to resign and favor those who flattered him, regardless of their abilities. This blurring of professional and personal boundaries seemed excessive, but it had been tolerated in this department. Now, he surrounded himself with favorite employees who obey him, effectively controlling the sales department. While avoiding Jason's gaze, I gathered information from Brandon. It appears I've become the target of a troublesome person. Just as I was getting used to the work in the sales department and the daily nagging from Jason. It seems that every year around this time, the sales department goes on a recreational trip. Some departments I had been in before had such events, and others didn't. It was my first company event in a while. One day, Jason suddenly called me over and tasked me with arranging the trip. "I really want to go to New York. Considering it's from here to New York, it might be quite expensive. Is that okay?" "That's your responsibility." Jason handed me a document with the schedule and budget. Even though he told me to figure it out, there's a limit to what can be done. If we wanted decent accommodations and meals, it might be difficult with this budget. "Understood. I'll give it a try." So, I scoured the internet for cost-effective accommodations and considered travel agency tours, somehow managing to come up with a New York trip plan within the budget. Juggling sales work and travel arrangements, I stayed late every day working on the trip plans. Since everyone's available dates were already set, I had to rush the hotel bookings. Popular cost-effective hotels needed to be booked quickly to avoid missing out on available rooms. When I submitted the plan and estimate to Jason, he just said them and carelessly placed it on a pile of documents. I was concerned that the hotel booking might fall through if it was left. I hesitantly spoke up to Jason. "What is it?" "The hotel is popular, and there's a chance it might get fully booked if we don't reserve soon." "What? Are you telling me to hurry up? Who do you think you are?" Jason glared at me, furrowing his brow. "I'm sorry, if an Olden or a lower-grade hotel is okay, then there's no rush. Sorry to bother you when you're busy." As I was about to leave, Jason stopped me. "Wait a minute," and I felt a sense of relief inside. So, I just need to contact here to make the reservation. Yes. They should recognize the name since we've already got a quote. It includes the flight tickets as well. I'll take care of the rest. You don't have to do anything more. I was surprised by Jason's unexpected offer. Really? You're going to handle it, Jason? Is there a problem? No, not at all. Thank you very much. I was puzzled but left the rest of the arrangements in Jason's hands and returned to my desk. However, I would come to regret letting Jason take over from it. On the day of the recreational trip, when I arrived at the meeting place, I saw Jason busy with his phone. He seemed to be sending a check and barcode to each member of the sales department one by one. Lately, checking in with a two-dimensional barcode instead of a paper ticket has become the norm. I moved forward to receive my ticket from Jason. All right, everyone, let's head to the boarding gate. Jason said this as if he couldn't see me standing right in front of him, addressing everyone else. I hadn't received the barcode yet. What? I should have sent it to everyone already. Jason made an exaggerated expression. What? Seeing my surprised face, Jason said while trying to hold back his laughter. Sorry, I totally forgot you were here. At Jason's words, everyone around us burst into laughter. I just stood there dazedly, looking at Jason. Sorry, but there's no seat for you. You had better head back now. Seeing Jason laughing, I regretted not handling the arrangements myself until the end. But it seems Jason had planned this from the start. I was completely set up. Understood. When I said that, Jason said bye and left with everyone towards the boarding gate. I stood there, watching their backs as they left, holding my travel bag and standing still for a while. On my way home from the airport, I sent an email to a certain person. That person is probably on the plane with the rest of the sales department by now, so the email won't reach them immediately, but that's fine. I never imagined I would be treated like this at a company I've worked at for nearly 20 years. Maybe I was too complacent, thinking I could handle this transfer as I had others in the past. In fact, my next transfer had been already decided. Though I had just arrived in the sales department, I was supposed to go to the strategic planning department after spending a few years here. I've been transferred far more than other employees. This was because they wanted me to gain tough experiences and learn about various jobs within the company. As a result, people, including Jason, saw me as a burden that couldn't be attached to any department, but it was all at the directive of a certain person. That person was Chairman Johnson, the company's founder. To be precise, he is currently the CEO and chairman, planning to hand over the CEO position to a subordinate soon. After a while, I received a call from Chairman Johnson, who seemed to have arrived at the destination. It was known that Chairman Johnson would accompany the sales department on the trip. Chairman Johnson and I were supposed to take different flights due to the different classes of seats and meet up at the destination. Chairman Johnson was surprised I wasn't there and called me directly. "What are you doing?" Despite being on the phone, I deeply apologized, hearing Chairman Johnson's disappointed voice. "I'm so sorry, Chairman Johnson. I never expected something like this to happen to me." Then, Chairman Johnson told me what had happened at the meeting place. Jason, who was in a good mood after setting me up, cheerfully greeted Chairman Johnson. When Chairman Johnson noticed I was missing, he said, "It seems the future president is not here." What? Jason was taken aback by his words. "Where's Michael? I heard he was the one planning this trip." I was the one who sent the email detailing the schedule for the recreational trip. However, after that, the responsibility was shifted from me to Jason. "I'm sorry, Chairman Johnson. Unfortunately, it seems Michael forgot to secure his own ticket and isn't here." Jason said to Chairman Johnson with a wry smile. Michael, I can't believe he would make such a mistake. Seeing Chairman Johnson's puzzled face, Jason nervously asked, I might have misheard, but what did you say a while ago? Something about a successor. I said he's the successor president. Chairman Johnson stated firmly, and Jason asked again. President, whom are you referring to? After being asked repeatedly, Chairman Johnson said with a bit of irritation, I told you, Michael is the successor president. I've decided that. Do you have a problem with that? It's no wonder Jason was taken aback by those words. I was just as shocked when I first heard it. My encounter with Chairman Johnson dates back almost 20 years. At the time when he wasn't yet serving as chairman and was known as President Johnson. A year had passed since I was assigned to the accounting department as a new graduate, and I was finally getting comfortable with the daily tasks. Accounting tasks are highly specialized, making it difficult to grasp the whole picture, including the financial statements. You could manage your work without understanding how your tasks fit into the financial statements, as long as you knew what you were responsible for. At that time, I understood my tasks but didn't really know what everyone else was doing. During lunch, I was eating my boxed lunch at my desk, summarizing tasks and their owners in a notebook, and studying the financial statements. Though not asked by Brandon, I wanted to learn as much as possible about the department's work to get a better understanding of the overall picture. When everyone else went out for lunch, I was invited. However, I had already bought my lunch. I was alone in the office. To save energy, only a few lights were on during lunch, leaving the office dim as I scrutinized the financial statements. I looked up for a moment and thought I made eye contact with someone walking in the hallway. Though the face was unclear from my desk, I greeted them since they were a colleague. Surprisingly, the person entered the accounting office. The smiling man seemed familiar. Working hard even during lunch, I see. Thank you, just trying to learn as much as I can. I replied, a bit embarrassed, not sure who he was. You're the new guy, right? Settling in okay. Does he know about me? The man said so. Yes, I've managed to get the hang of my tasks, but understanding the whole picture is still challenging. Interesting. Did someone ask you to do this? He pondered for a moment after asking. No, no one asked, but I thought it'd be good to understand more than just my tasks, to eventually grasp the current situation and think about improvements. You're interested in fund management, aren't you? That's impressive. I didn't even understand the difference between financial statements and balance sheets when I started learning about management. He was surprised by my response. I shouldn't have said such things as a newcomer, but I was surprised he took me seriously. Were you aiming for the accounting department from the start? Not really. I graduated from the business school, but I joined because I liked our products, not specifically for accounting. Since I was in the business school, dealing with numbers was never a challenge for me. However, having joined my favorite confectionery manufacturer, I also have a desire to not just work with numbers but to be directly involved with the products one day. So, you're interested in planning or manufacturing too? Absolutely. I'm in accounting now, so I'm focusing here, but working directly with the products has always been my dream. I see. Maybe in about 3 years then. What? The man murmured something to himself, prompting me to ask again. Sorry, it's nothing. So, do you have any goals you are aiming for in the accounting department right now? Well, for now, I want to expand my knowledge of financial statements. I think I need to understand the processes that the accounting system automates. While accounting systems save time, I believe it's not good to rely on them entirely. Using an accounting system makes it easier to handle data and understand the flow of information, but getting a full grasp of the big picture is crucial for management accounting. which is beneficial for business management. Yes, I'd also like to try my hand at cost accounting. That's great. Product costing is vital for a business's lifeline. It's good to have that experience. As we were talking, the bell signaling on the end of lunch break rang. People began returning to the office, and while they seemed surprised to see the man, they greeted him as they passed. "See you around." With that, the man left with a smile. Then, Alex from the next desk asked me, "What were you talking to President Johnson about?" "What?" Surprised, I inadvertently raised my voice. It seemed that the familiar face I couldn't remember was from the company's website or brochures. I knew from our conversation that he was someone in a management position, but I never imagined he was President Johnson. Although we only talked about work that day, from then on, Chairman Johnson often visited the accounting department. Sometimes he spoke with Brandon, but he always made a point to stop by my desk afterward. We talked about my current work, the company at large, and even personal matters like family. After I knew it was Chairman Johnson, I was a bit more guarded in our conversations, but he told me, "We're going to be working together for a long time, so don't be so stiff." Even after I transferred from the accounting department to product planning and then to production management, I frequently crossed paths with Chairman Johnson. I always thought Chairman Johnson was just making rounds to listen to the employees in various departments, but a colleague in product planning mentioned that they started seeing him around more often after I arrived. Chairman Johnson, who used to be spotted only once or twice a year, was now a more common sight. This was mentioned not only in product planning but also after I moved to production management. I always found it strange, but I thought it was just a coincidence. However, I enjoyed talking with Chairman Johnson. If he was making an effort to see me, I was happy about it. Chairman Johnson once asked me, "What do you think is a necessary quality for a president?" "Maybe the ability to oversee the entire company and the world at large." I answered thoughtfully. "True, being able to have an overview is important, but you've been saying that since your first year, wanting to understand the entirety of the accounting department." "Oh, maybe I do have the makings of a president, just kidding." I joked, and Chairman Johnson laughed along, continuing the conversation. Knowledge in accounting or culture, specific skills needed for job execution can be learned later, but innate qualities are something you're born with. It's not easy to change the way you think, right? Indeed, some people are naturally positive, while others can't help but think negatively no matter how hard they try. Even when I make mistakes at work, I tend to bounce back relatively quickly instead of dwelling on them. The transfers that come every few years might leave some regrets, but the joy of learning new things outweighs them. I hadn't fully realized it. I have a naturally strong curiosity. Exactly. Not everyone is cut out for the job of president. I'm not really the best fit for it myself. I was more interested in research. Really? Before founding this company, you were doing food development research at a major confectionery manufacturer, right? Yes, exactly. So when I decided to start my own business, I realized I wasn't quite cut out for it, but I had to do it anyway. Building this company, which is well known and loved by many, must have required immense effort. Being a president requires various skills like dealing with crises, decision-making, and execution. Chairman Johnson might say he's not suited for the role, but reaching this point must have involved significant talent and hard work. What I think is, a president should never stop learning. Even if things are going well, they shouldn't be satisfied and should always look for improvements. That's the kind of person I want for the next president. Are you planning to retire, Chairman Johnson? Surprised by the talk of a successor, I asked Chairman Johnson. Not immediately, but succession is a common topic among presidents. Who will take over? You can't just hand over the company to someone who knows nothing, right? A successor needs to be properly groomed. The future of the company is at stake, so it can't be taken lightly. Right. That's why I've been worried. But then, I happened to meet someone who seemed suitable. But the next CEO. Chairman Johnson said this with a very pleased expression. That's great. By any chance, Mr. Johnson, were you visiting various departments to find a successor? Did I do something like that? From his puzzled look, it was clear that my assumption was wrong. Well, let's set that aside for now. What I was looking for was someone serious, curious, and always eager to learn. Someone who could adapt flexibly to new environments and communicate effectively, no matter where they are. Chairman Johnson listed the qualities he was looking for in a president. I pictured the faces of various people within the company. I wondered who exactly he was talking about. My judgment wasn't wrong after all. Chairman Johnson said, looking me straight in the eye. It's you, Michael. Huh? I was stunned. I stood with my mouth agape, and Chairman Johnson smiled contentedly. I would like you to be my successor. I was at a loss for words, and Chairman Johnson continued in a gentle tone. Didn't you ever think it was strange that you were transferred every 3 or 4 years? Well, yes, but I thought maybe it just happened. That was because I wanted you to experience various departments and understand their specific work. Understanding the field is important for a president. I had come to think my frequent transfers as normal, but others might stay in the same department for 5 or 10 years. I never imagined such a reason behind my many transfers. Could it be that Mr. Johnson often came to see me because? Of course, I was concerned about how my successor was doing. Saying that, Chairman Johnson puffed out his chest. It felt like solving a long-standing mystery. Wait, when did you start thinking of me that way? At my question, Chairman Johnson looked nostalgic. When I talked to the newcomer in the accounting department. I remember that time well. When I talked without even realizing he was the president. It was during my first year, on a lunch break in the accounting department. I had no idea that such a casual conversation would lead him to choose me as his successor. Wherever I was transferred, President Johnson would always visit and ask, "How's it going here?" Having no memory of my father, I sometimes wondered if a father would watch over me like this. If Chairman Johnson chose me as his successor, there was no reason to refuse. Of course, I had my fears. The thought of possibly ruining the company Chairman Johnson built from scratch with just one wrong decision was terrifying. You don't have to rush. After gaining some more experience in other departments, you'll go to the strategic planning office to learn about management. Once you get there, Chairman Johnson, always calm, seemed happier than I had ever seen him. I'm counting on you. This conversation happened before I came to the sales department. I was still in the marketing department at that time. Since then, Chairman Johnson became the CEO and chairman, and it was rumored within the company that he might hand over the presidency to a successor in a few years. I was transferred to the sales department and would go to the strategic planning office in a few years. I heard that Chairman Johnson had mentioned this during the trip. Jason was reportedly trembling with his face pale throughout the trip. The story distracted him during the trip, so he seemed not to even notice the beautiful scenery of New York, according to Chairman Johnson. The day after everyone returned from the trip, Jason and I were called in by Chairman Johnson. Though Chairman Johnson was surprised at my absence, he didn't delve too deeply into it during the trip. I couldn't give details over the phone, but I felt Chairman Johnson had a sense of what was going on from Jason's behavior. Not being strictly questioned during the trip seemed to have put Jason in a state of limbo, which was effective in its own way. He came to work the next day looking haggard. So, first of all, I've mentioned that Michael will be the next president, but do you have any questions about that? Why him, I mean? Jason hesitantly started speaking. Because he has the qualities needed. Haven't you noticed that as Michael's supervisor? There was a sharp edge to the words directed at Jason. I'm sorry, but the issue with the ticket was his mistake. Are you still talking about that? Chairman Johnson raised his voice, causing Jason to shrink back. Michael, if you have something to say, feel free. That made me speak up. I was the one who got the quote for the trip, but Jason insisted on handling the arrangements himself. On the day, I was told at the airport that there was no ticket for me. Telling the truth, I felt a sharp glare from Jason beside me. That's nonsense. I don't care if you're going to be president or whatever. You won't bring me down. Jason lashed out at me. Feeling somewhat exasperated, I turned to face Jason. Jason, isn't it about time you stopped? I'm aware of all the harassment you've inflicted on many people. It was clear from what colleagues had said that Jason hadn't just harassed me, but had been doing it to various people over time. There must be many who couldn't stand up to him and left. No one in the department dared to speak up against Jason because they were desperate to avoid trouble themselves. They turned a blind eye to those being harassed. Of course, such behavior is inexcusable, but the priority was to address the root of the problem. What are you talking about? Do you have any proof? There's no way you have any. Then, I placed a document in front of Jason. While everyone was on the trip, I contacted someone who used to work in the sales department. They had left, but they had kept a detailed diary. Jason began to tremble as he looked at the document. It contained detailed accounts of what Jason had said and done. When I looked into it, I found many others who had left. As soon as I mentioned Jason's name, they all were willing to help. I had gotten the contact information of these former employees from Brandon, who had taught me a lot about the job. He must have known he'd be in trouble if Jason found out, but he trusted me and shared the information. This can't be proof. I thought the diary might not be enough, so I asked the person in charge of the consultation service to dig up old emails. Here they are. As I handed over another document, Jason snatched it from my hand and roughly flipped through the pages. His hands shook, and he collapsed to his knees. This can't be. Chairman Johnson took the documents from Jason's hands and flipped through them. So, this is what you had been doing during the trip? Yes, since I didn't have a ticket. I shrugged and explained to Chairman Johnson. The strength to overcome adversity is also a quality of a president. Chairman Johnson smiled in satisfaction. Still, I bear some responsibility for not noticing the misconduct of my subordinate. I'm sorry for putting you through that. Chairman Johnson apologized to me. Please, don't say that, Chairman Johnson. Being able to apologize properly is also important for a president. He winked. After everything came to light, Jason was demoted and transferred to a different department. He was sent to a so-called sideline department and seems to be spending his days in gloom. To ensure he couldn't behave recklessly anymore, the person in charge of the company's grievance office keeps a close eye on him. After Jason left the sales department, my colleagues came to me one by one to apologize. They must have known their actions were wrong in their mind. I accepted the apologies, and fulfilling days in the sales department finally began. When I returned home after a long time, my grandmother and mother welcomed me. My mother is still energetic, but my grandmother is quite old now, so she tends to forget recent events quickly, though she surprisingly remembers things from the past well. Grandma, do you remember this? I handed her a familiar bag of rice crackers. Oh, it's my favorite, isn't it? That's right. Do you remember that I work at this company? Yes, of course. Mikey also loved these. I was so happy when I heard you got a job here. Though my grandmother has more absent-minded moments lately, her responses are still sharp. I've become the president of the company. My words surprised my grandmother, That must have been hard. Yes, it wasn't easy, but it was enjoyable. Despite the challenges, now that I'm president, I feel that everything has been a valuable experience. I still have a lot to learn as a president, but I'm doing my best in my own way, guided by Chairman Johnson. That's good. Mikey has always been such a hard worker, hasn't he? Being praised like a little child at my age makes me feel a bit shy. It's all thanks to you, Grandma. Thank you. As I expressed my gratitude, my grandmother smiled happily, with her eyes narrowed. The nostalgic smile of my grandmother I used to see while eating cookies as a child. These cookies and my grandmother's smile are my fundamental memories. Just thinking about them warms my heart. I hope to convey this warmth to many people through our products. I'm willing to do whatever it takes for that. The journey as a president has just begun. Useless old man should just take no seat. If they can't walk anymore, they should just quit the company already. I've been working in sales at my company for 30 years. Following an accident, I became disabled and couldn't let go of my cane. My female successor, Kathy, looked down on me. It's a nuisance for everyone else if you just stick around. That might be true, but her way of saying it was quite harsh. As I was pondering what to do, a woman appeared. My name is Michael. I was a salesman at an interior design company. I had been working hard in the sales department since I was a fresh graduate, but a few years ago, I was involved in a traffic accident during work and my leg was severely injured. My knee became stiff and difficult to move. Since then, I've been forced to live a somewhat inconvenient life, unable to walk without a cane. I tried hard with rehabilitation, but I never managed to walk as I used to. I could no longer travel around to meet clients, and my work shifted to mainly desk work at the office. The accident happened about 2 years ago. I was in a branch office, driving a company car to a client's place as usual. I believe it was a right turn ahead. The sky was clear on a beautiful autumn day, neither too hot nor too cold, just comfortable. Though it was a major road, it wasn't crowded due to the time. However, the visibility at the upcoming intersection was a bit poor. While enjoying the cheerful music from the speakers, I entered the right turn lane. Oops, a pedestrian, huh? As I was doing my safety check approaching the intersection, I saw a truck speeding in the lane where it should have been stopping for the red light. Hey, you're going to stop, right? The truck didn't seem to be slowing down, swaying quite a bit. There were still pedestrians crossing, and the line of cars waiting to turn right behind me was packed. No way, The truck didn't stop at the stop line and crashed into the car I was in. My car was thrown into an indescribable spin. It was fortunate that the driver's seat wasn't hit directly. Ouch. I felt like I lost consciousness for a few seconds or minutes. When I looked around, the car was distorted, and the windshield was cracked all over. The airbag had deployed, indicating the impact was beyond imagination. I unbuckled my seatbelt, forced to open a creaking, defumed door, and crawled out. The intersection was in complete chaos. The truck that hit me had knocked down several street trees and stopped in a convenience store parking lot. Is the driver over there okay? If the driver had lost consciousness due to a medical condition and went out of control, it must be tough for them too. With that thought, I tried to cross the street. Whoa. I fell within just a few steps. I instinctively reached out my hands, but my forehead hit the ground. A warm sensation trickled down towards my chin from where I hit. However, more concerning than the pain or discomfort was my leg that wouldn't muster any strength. Can't I plant my feet? Looking at my aching right leg, it appeared like a mere stick, stretched out straight. Despite the pain, I tried to stand up, but my knee wouldn't bend. Forcing it to bend seemed futile, as it likely couldn't support my weight. "Are you okay?" As I lamented my inability to stand, the truck driver rushed over to me. He seemed to have injuries above his right eye and on his right side, but he appeared okay enough to run. That was somewhat relieving. Just as I thought that, my vision started to spin. "I'll call an ambulance right now." Despite his calls, my eyelids gradually fell. Initially, I tried to keep awake, but then realized it would be easier to just sleep, so I stopped resisting. When I next woke up, the first thing I saw was an unfamiliar white ceiling. Moving my eyes, I saw curtains, some machines I couldn't identify, and an IV drip. Hospital, huh? The memory of the accident flashed back in my mind. But I thought it must have been a bad dream or something, so I tried to move my body. My neck, both arms, and my left leg moved just fine. This is bad. Only my right leg wouldn't move at all. More precisely, I couldn't bend my knee. I could lift it from the hip if I tried, but there was an unfathomable fear of moving it forcefully, making me hesitate. "Are you awake, Michael?" As I groaned to myself, a man in a white coat parted the curtains and appeared. "I am Dr. Miller, in charge of your care." "Thanks." My brusque greeting seemed to darken Dr. Miller's expression. He said nothing for a few seconds, just looking at my immobile right leg. "How's my leg? How long will it take to heal? When can I start driving and moving around again?" "It won't be immediate. Let's work hard on rehabilitation. I'll assist you." From Dr. Miller's hesitation and tone, I could somewhat guess. My leg would probably never return to how it was before. Running freely was likely impossible now. Strangely, I felt no sadness or anger towards the truck driver. I just felt incredibly sudden. Even though I understood that my nearly 30-year career as a salesman had abruptly ended, I couldn't fully grasp it emotionally. "Hey, when can I drive again? When will I be able to travel all over the country?" "Michael." Even though I knew it was impossible, I kept asking Dr. Miller the same questions. I wanted affirmation. I wanted him, a medical expert, to tell me that I could be a salesman again. But he didn't say that. Giving hope and not lying contradicted each other in this situation. As a doctor, he probably couldn't say anything irresponsible. It was then that I first shed tears. The cause of the accident was the truck driver falling asleep at the wheel. It wasn't due to a loss of consciousness from a chronic condition or drowsiness from medication side effects. The working conditions at the trucking company he worked for were extremely poor, and he hadn't been getting enough sleep. The night before the accident, he had hardly slept and was on his 12th consecutive day of work. "I'm truly sorry." The driver, who had brought a gift as a gesture of apology, offered his deep apologies to me, seated in my wheelchair. "Please don't apologize. You're a victim in this situation too. Since the fault lies with his company, I couldn't blame him. Besides, no matter how much he apologized or how much money I received, it wouldn't make my legs work again. I will have to live with this disability for the rest of my life. That fact remains unchanged. Well, it's time for my rehabilitation, so I'll be taking my leave now. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. I want to take some responsibility." Despite my telling him not to apologize, he continued to do so as I left. "In that case, could you push my wheelchair to the rehabilitation room? I'm not used to operating it and my arms are sore." "Of course, leave it to me." Though I had asked for his assistance, neither of us knew what to talk about, and we reached the destination in silence. He had to go to the police station that afternoon, so we parted ways there. As for me, I continued with my usual rehabilitation routine. I would fall to my right leg, then get up using the strength of my arms and left leg. I repeated this frustrating process so much that I sighed. As a result of continuing with rehabilitation, I reached a level where I could walk somewhat with the aid of a cane. However, I couldn't work outside as actively as before. Not wanting to resign myself to unemployment, I obediently followed instructions to transfer to the administrative department of the same company. At the same time, for certain reasons, it was decided that I would transfer from the branch to the headquarters. After I started working in the administrative department at the headquarters, I received a message from Kathy, who worked at the branch. Kathy had taken over my duties at the branch and was a 30-year-old woman serving as the manager of the sales division. It seemed she wanted to visit the headquarters for inspection. The lack of interaction between the headquarters and the branches had been an issue, so this was a good opportunity. Thinking so, I accepted her request. She is coming to the headquarters today. As someone familiar with her, I volunteered to be her guide. It looks like Kathy has just arrived. Welcome to the headquarters. How can I help you today? I walked to the office in trance, leaning on my cane, to greet her. Thank you. Please show me around as soon as possible. I don't have much time to spare. I had intended to welcome her warmly, but she spoke with a somewhat cold attitude. I've heard that people nowadays tend to be more detached, but is this what they mean? Yet, somehow, she seems a bit different from before. Understood. I'll show you around. First, I'll start with the office we're in. Turning around, I indicate each section with my left hand. My right hand still on the cane. This is the administrative department. Since my transfer, I've been working here. I might be in other areas at times, but feel free to approach me if you need anything. Even as I said that, Kathy didn't even offer a courtesy smile. She just kept scribbling notes. I want to engage with her more casually, but I wonder if it's a lost cause. That back there is accounting, and by the window over there is the development department. As I continued with the detailed explanations, Kathy closed her notebook with a snap and started walking briskly. Kathy. She proceeded without saying a word. Following her, it seemed she was going around greeting each department head. If that was her plan, I wish she would have told me. I sighed inwardly at this thought. This is the vice president's office, and beyond that is the president's office. They've been informed of your visit for inspection. Is that so? She didn't meet my gaze even for a second, but finally responded. Kathy then moved on to the vice president's office without a second glance. After a few minutes, she came out and headed straight to the break room, where she began greeting people who were making coffee. She skipped the president's office upon seeing a not present sign. Kathy moved on from one place to the next without waiting for me, dragging my leg along. As she said earlier, she must be busy. Next is the development room. It's located above the factory, so shall we go? Oh. Kathy had already started walking in the middle of my explanation. Her heels clicked as she ascended the stairs. Since I needed to use the elevator, I had to take a longer route. Are you ready yet? When I arrived at the development room, Kathy was waiting with crossed arms, looking irritated. I'm sorry for the delay. It's because of my leg. I apologized with a sheepish smile, but she glanced at my cane, sighed, and looked away with a hum sound. Taking out a notepad and pen from her pocket was probably her way of urging me to hurry up with the explanation. Here, we handle everything from interior design and planning to handmade prototypes and considering mass production. Technical details are hard to grasp from verbal explanations alone, and I wasn't familiar with them either. With this in mind, I had already spoken to the head of the technical department, David, in advance. Please, come in. Oh, and please change into slippers at the entrance. Yes. She responded coldly again and entered the development room. She was listening to the explanations, but I couldn't help feeling like she disliked me. So, this is how the development process flows. Ah, I see. That's very clear. Kathy was very engaged in David's explanations, nodding vigorously. Her tone was bright and cheerful, a stark contrast to her interactions with me. Seeing this, I felt a bit uneasy. Did I do something to upset her? As we were heading to the reception room after the last part of the tour, Kathy surprisingly initiated a conversation. "Why did you come to the headquarters, Michael?" "Well, it's because of this leg, I suppose. I really wanted to continue as a salesman, but I can't drive anymore." As usual, there was no response, only the sound of my cane and her heels echoing in the hallway. "People at the branch said they miss you. Wouldn't it have been better if you had stayed?" The way she phrased it didn't seem like a pure question. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it felt like there was an underlying message of, "Isn't it presumptuous for someone like you to be working at the headquarters?" Well, the transfer was decided by my superiors at the time. Even though I tried to be vague, Kathy's expression didn't clear up. It seemed she held the idea of working at the headquarters in high regard. I believe that the work doesn't change whether at the branch or headquarters, but she seemed to think differently. Being involved in major projects and career advancement seemed to require a position at the headquarters, in her opinion. And she's not the only one who thinks this way. I've heard there are other employees who share Kathy's perspective. "You could have stayed comfortably in the countryside. Why were you transferred to the headquarters?" "Well, I'm not sure why." Kathy was grumbling complaints while walking a few steps ahead of me. The distance between us kept growing. It must be tough for the headquarters too, having someone who's a drag on the team. Perhaps thinking she had made a clever joke, she looked back at my leg, smirking as she spoke. I've become used to such comments and continued to ignore them without taking them to heart. "Don't you think it's nonsensical that you, who can hardly do anything now, are at the headquarters, while I'm stuck in a rural branch?" Her veiled insults gradually turned into direct rudeness. We arrived at the reception room amidst this uncomfortable atmosphere. Upon opening the door to the reception room, she immediately took the seat. She crossed her legs and leaned back in her chair. "Useless old man should just take no seat. If you can't walk anymore, you should just quit the company already. It's a nuisance for everyone else if you just stick around." As soon as we entered the enclosed space, she insulted me with a laugh. That must have been her true feelings behind all the snide remarks she had made so far. "Ha ha ha, perhaps you're right," I responded with a laugh, not letting it bother me, which only seemed to frustrate Kathy more. Being unfazed by her words must have been irksome to her. Following her words, I didn't take a seat and stood there. Then, there was a knock at the door. "Excuse me." With that, the door opened, and a woman entered. In her hand, she carries a tray with 2 cups of coffee. Her name was Sophie. She was the head of the secretarial department and served as the president's secretary. Often featured on the cover of the company newsletter, she was somewhat of a celebrity within the company, known across both headquarters and branches. Of course, Kathy would know her face and name. Why would the president's secretary be serving coffee to us? Kathy was surprised and asked this question with wide eyes, but Sophie seemed too flustered to respond. "Dad, why are you standing there? Did your leg get worse?" She abandoned serving coffee and showed concern for my leg instead. The coffee on the tray, though not spilled, was rippling. "No, it's not like that. I did walk more than usual today, so I'm a bit tired, though. Could I have some coffee?" "Oh, why don't you sit down? You had me worried." With my explanation, she regained her composure and carried the tray to Kathy. "I'm sorry to keep you waiting." Wait, are you two related? Like, are you father and daughter? Picking up on the unexpected connection from our conversation, she asked the president's secretary. Yes. Sophie is my daughter. While some people are aware of this, others simply think we share the same last name by coincidence. Kathy was one such example. The president recently changed, and now my father is serving as the president. I have the honor of being his secretary, though it's a bit embarrassing to be a family member in this role. The president changed. Kathy's mouth fell open in shock at Sophie's words. Wasn't this communicated to the branch as well? Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. Kathy turned pale, her previously crossed legs now placed squarely on the floor. I hadn't mentioned it, thinking she was already aware. So, she didn't know. The person she had been disparaging and belittling was the president of the headquarters. It must have been a shocking revelation for her. Kathy, it seems you've been quite supportive to my father. Before anything else, I'd like to thank you as his daughter. Such an attitude toward someone with a disability really shows how self-centered you are. I overheard the conversation before I entered the room. Sophie fixed a straight, cold gaze on Kathy. Do you even realize what you've said and to whom? Suddenly lowering her tone, Sophie confronted Kathy. Taken aback by such a sudden change, Kathy slid back in her chair. Stop it, Sophie. I interjected, and Sophie immediately reverted to her usual self. In the uncomfortable silence, I addressed Kathy. You must have your own thoughts about me, right? I know I've caused you a lot of trouble with my sudden transfer and the handover wasn't sufficient. I truly apologize for that. I spoke calmly, trying to reason with her. She looked utterly astonished by my words. I've heard a lot from the branch office about how well you're doing. Me. As I nodded, she slightly looked down. Then, lifting her gaze, she began to speak softly. I was often compared to you at the branch office. It wasn't harassment. Nor was it about being better or worse. But taking over my job and living up to expectations was hard and pressurizing for her. Everyone says, it's okay if you can't do it like Michael, you're not him. I don't usually like to say this, but I have 30 years of experience. Expecting the same or even more from someone else is unreasonable. Perhaps that's why people said such encouraging words to her, as she recounted. But to Kathy, it felt like a burden. No matter what I do, I can't surpass Michael, let alone catch up. It's terrifying. She was tormented by the fear of not meeting expectations and jealousy. She felt like she didn't belong. That's why she had been harsh towards me, she explained with tearful eyes. And every time I heard people regretting your transfer, I felt like I was nothing. Every time she heard praises for me, Kathy felt like she was being labeled incompetent. It's not just about others' perceptions. Every time I looked at the work you left, I was filled with anxiety and uncertainty. She felt crushed from the outside and the inside. Wondering if I could fill your shoes, who had raised the branch's sales to be comparable to the headquarters, was my daily torment. Kathy confessed through tears. After a moment of silence, I spoke up. What's expected of you and me is different. Chasing after my shadow won't get you anywhere, I believe. Originally, my goal was to acquire new clients and train employees, as commanded by the previous president. After achieving this, I was assigned to transfer to the headquarters, leaving the branch in the hands of Kathy and others. I enjoyed being a salesman and was reluctant, but then that accident happened. With my right leg now impaired, I resignedly accepted the transfer. Since the branch is in a rural area, acquiring new clients will be tough due to the limited target demographic. What I want from you is to maintain and improve quality. I'd like you to enhance customer satisfaction from your unique perspective. Saying this, Kathy showed a soft expression I had never seen before. "Well, I was hoping you'd realize this on your own. I accept the assignment." Kathy nodded repeatedly, tearfully making her declaration. However, Sophie still lashed out at Kathy. She wasn't ready to forgive. "Trying to make this a heartwarming story won't make me forgive you. Your attitude towards my father earlier revealed your true character." Sophie shared with Kathy the hardships and the events that had transpired with me. That accident could have been life-threatening with just one wrong step. The rehabilitation afterwards was tough too. He still goes for sessions whenever he has the time. Despite my disability, I truly wanted to continue working as a salesman. I had to suppress that desire and leave the branch office in everyone's hands. And so, that's why I can't forgive statements that trample on my father's struggles. Sophie. Hearing her angry words, Kathy looked down again. Seemingly afraid to meet Sophie's eyes, Kathy finally spoke. "I'm truly sorry. I deeply apologize for my naive thoughts." "It's all right, Kathy. Mr. Johnson." She tentatively raised her face. "I'm well aware that my disability has been an inconvenience to everyone." Saying this made both of them shake their heads. But I continued anyway. "When walking in a crowd, it's natural for people in a hurry to wish I wouldn't walk so slowly. I'm mindful in narrow stores too, but that's because the world is built for those without disabilities. It can't be helped." Hearing this, they both fell silent. Seeing their reactions, I cheerfully suggested, "Let's end this discussion here." I shifted the conversation to a different work topic, and we didn't talk about anything else after that. Later, I received an overly formal apology letter from Kathy. She had gone to the trouble of handwriting a lengthy message on a paper, sealing it in an envelope. Inside the envelope, along with the letter, was a proposal. A cafe adopting universal design where both able-bodied and disabled people can enjoy together. It was a plan for a store that integrates a cafe with our company's interior goods. The design sketches were sent in a separate email. They included designs with no elevation changes for those with walking difficulties. The proposal also includes the installation of handrails that balance both aesthetics and functionality, as well as the development of chairs that are easy to sit in. The proposal also suggested providing tableware that could be used by people with arm and hand disabilities, allowing everyone to choose according to their needs. Given the high land prices in urban areas where our headquarters is located, the proposal was envisioned to be implemented around the branch office. It was an excellent proposal. I couldn't help but call Kathy at the branch office. After receiving advice from you to approach things in my own way, I gave it some thought and came up with a proposal I sent you. Yes, it's a really interesting proposal. Let's definitely give it a try. It seems she had been doing a lot of thinking since that inspection day. I wanted to raise the issue of how we can live together without inconveniences, regardless of one's physical condition. This proposal was one of the initiatives presented as part of that idea. Impressed, I was determined to make this project a success as a company. As the president, I would do everything in my power to support it. After some time, the cafe started to become a reality. Kathy led the creation of the barrier-free interior. She had conducted thorough research by visiting facilities for the physically disabled. Rather than relying on imagination or consideration, she thoroughly identified the actual stress points for those directly affected by conducting realistic assessments. The completed interior was indeed something I could navigate without stress. But Kathy still seemed unsatisfied. "Are you going somewhere?" Having some time, I had Sophie drive me to see the cafe, where I ran into Kathy about to get into a company car. "Yes, I'm off to a university specializing in welfare to take lectures from the professors." "That's a great idea." Her proactive approach was truly befitting of a sales manager. She is also taking the lead in promoting it in various places. Take care. I hope you come back with some interesting stories. As I walked beside her, Sophie offered these words of encouragement. Yeah, I'll be back soon. I promise to bring back some great stories. Despite their previous tension, they had somehow become friends. They've even started going out together on their days off. After some time, the cafe project turned out to be a huge success. It gained a fair amount of attention on social media, and sales for our main line of interior products skyrocketed. I've been wondering if this single project might have already surpassed the shadow of Mel, under which she once felt pressured. It was on such a day, while I was pondering this, that I received a message. The cafe's social contributions had been recognized by the local government, and they wanted to award us. Naturally, we gratefully accepted the award. I hope this would further boost our company's morale. This award not only celebrated the cafe's success but also strongly affirmed Kathy's efforts in its planning. So, in addition to the external award, we'll also hold a ceremony within the company. I announced this during our weekly all-hands meeting. Of course, Kathy would be the one to receive the award. Her hard work was the reason for this excitement. We held a simple ceremony at the branch office. As the president, I read the award aloud and handed the trophy to Kathy. She received a round of applause from everyone, a celebration of her achievement. Thank you, Kathy. The cafe is a great success because of you. It's the fruit of your labor. Please continue to drive it forward. Yes, leave it to me. Her response was energetic, and her face was bright and refreshed. There was no sign of the pressure or inferiority complex she once had. Instead, her expression was filled with confidence and pride. Years after the accident, I still haven't been able to let go of my cane. I still attend rehabilitation sessions regularly. Dr. Muller, is there really nothing that can be done about this right leg? Since then, I've completely given up on making a full recovery. As a result, I now ask such questions more as a joke. Well, that's up to your will. The doctor would reply with a laugh. Sure. Though I say I've given up, I feel it's slightly different upon reflection. Even with my right leg not fully functional, the kindness and understanding of those around me allow me to work and live without issues. Realizing this made me less obsessed with a complete recovery. It might be inconvenient, but it's far from unhappy. So, I've decided to live with this disability for as long as I can. A society where everyone shows empathy and helps each other. A society where, regardless of any disabilities, people don't feel stressed. Like that cafe, I want to contribute through my work at the interior company to create more such places. Looking out the hospital window at the sky, these were my thoughts. They say poverty rubs off with a dress like that. John's fiancé, apparently, didn't like the wedding dress I had made. He went as far as to trash it, posting it on the internet with bad reviews to tarnish its image. But he didn't stop there. He paid others to write a massive amount of negative comments about our company. Because of this, my company has been swamped with handling complaint calls. If left as it is, this could negatively impact our work. So, in an emergency meeting, I decided to start doing business with a well-known company. On the wedding day, to get back at John, I urged him to check his cell phone. He was shaken. What's happening? Contracts were being canceled en masse at his company. I couldn't let him off for demeaning my dress, troubling Alice, and spreading bad reviews about our company. We will thoroughly get back at John. My name is Ryan. I'm a man who just entered my 30s, working at a wedding dress manufacturing company. Just an average person, my growing waistline with age is a concern. I know I should exercise for my health, but work is too hectic right now. Especially since the wedding dresses I've been making have gone viral on social media in recent months, doubling the orders. Initially skeptical, starting SNS for the company turned out to be more effective than expected. Thus, while the company is growing its profits, I've been spinning in busy days. Thanks to this, my life revolves around thinking about wedding dresses every day. As a child, I had no interest in wedding dresses. Even when I did think about them, I assumed they were made by women. That perception changed due to an incident in the first year of middle school. Seeing my parents' wedding made me want to create attire that embellishes people's precious memories. My parents, being poor, couldn't afford a wedding initially, but managed to have one years later, thanks to the kindness of an elderly man living nearby. He was a wedding planner and wanted feedback on a new plan he had devised. That turned out to be the reason he approached my parents. Looking back, having a wedding without spending tens of thousands was a stroke of luck. Our family's financial situation is better now, but back then, I had to work right after middle school due to our hardships. I decided to work at a wedding dress manufacturing company after graduating from middle school because I couldn't forget how happy my mother looked in her wedding dress. During the season of vibrant autumn leaves, I was working in the company and spoke to a female colleague. Maybe we should change the color combination here a bit. Understood. I'm sorry to trouble you with this when you have your own work. It's no bother at all. The person I was speaking to is my younger colleague. Her name is Alice. She's sitting at her desk, intently staring at the computer screen. She's also in her 30s, a classmate from middle school. But after graduating, she went to a fashion-related vocational school. Since she joined a company after gaining various specialized knowledge at school, she was a younger colleague, even though we were classmates. The client has specified a color for the lace, so we should consider that in our design, right? Right. The customer's request is paramount. It's a once-in-a-lifetime occasion, so we want to make a dress that they'll love. This reminds me of our middle school days. After school, we'd brainstorm various clothing designs together. When I was designing wedding dresses, others would mock me, saying, "Wedding dress, even though you're a guy," but she wasn't like that. When I asked why she didn't mock me, she said, "There's no gender in loving something." I was attracted to her in middle school, but my first love never came to fruition. It seems she has a fiancé. I've tried to learn a lot since I started vocational school, but I still have a long way to go. I'm taken aback by her voice as she speaks to me. She seems to be struggling with a big problem lately. She often repeating the same mistakes or forgetting what she needs to do. As a colleague working in the same office, I want to help her if I can, but it's personal, so I can't get too involved. "I wish you'd talk to me if you are having trouble," I said, "but I wonder if that time will ever come." As I watch her and think, a bug flies. It flies in from nowhere, apparently wanting to get out. It keeps hitting the window glass. It's painful to watch, so I open the window to let it out, and then Alice speaks to me. "You're kind. You were helping a cat near the office the other day too," she says. She's talking about something that happened a week ago. I was about to head home when I heard a cat meowing from a tree near the office, so I got curious. Turns out, the cat couldn't get down from the tree, so I brought a ladder from the office to rescue it. It seems Alice saw me doing this. I don't think it's a big deal. That cat might have been able to get down from the tree on its own after a while, I say. But I think the cat was still anxious, so it was good that you helped it out early, she replies with a smile. Seeing her smile makes me feel a bit shy. While we're talking, her phone vibrates. Alice picks it up from the desk, checks the screen, and her expression darkens. She thought it was a message from a client, but it wasn't. "What's wrong?" I asked. After hesitating for a few seconds, she slowly starts to speak. "Well, my boyfriend has been saying some mean things lately," she says. "Mean things, even though he's dating you?" "No, not about me, about people at work." She has a fiancé named John, who's in his 50s and values education highly. He's seen as an elite director at his large company because of this. He often tells Alice not to associate with people who didn't go to college. By the way, John graduated from a prestigious university. I heard from a colleague that he used to only hang out with smart people in university. Because someone from our company graduated from the same university, I had heard about him before. Alice looks down at her phone, which vibrates again, with a complicated expression. Why would he say that hanging out with people with lower education makes you dumber? She wonders. Maybe she's received another message like that. Since there are quite a few people like me who started working right after middle school at our company, maybe he's worried about that. It's ridiculous. Just because someone didn't finish high school doesn't mean they're not a good person. You, me, and everyone else here are not bad people, she says. Alice. Sorry, please forget I said anything. I just decided on a wedding date, so maybe I'm just worried about everything. She says with a downcast look. I can't come up with anything comforting to say. Somehow, it doesn't seem like Alice and John are a good match, despite the age difference and differing values. Why did she decide to get married? As I ponder Alice and John's situation, time passes. During this time, I've made several wedding dresses. It was chaotic at first, but I've gotten used to it with experience. The number of orders hasn't changed, but now I can handle my work more comfortably. In the midst of this, Alice asks me for a favor. She approached me during the break with a formal attitude to talk about her wedding. "So, you want me to design the wedding dress you'll wear, Alice?" "Yes, I've always wanted to wear a wedding dress designed by you. If I'm going to wear one for my wedding, I want it to be yours," she says. I'm flattered to hear that. It's genuinely satisfying to be appreciated. The responsibility of contributing to such an important moment in my classmate's life is a big pressure, but it also motivates me. However, I wonder if she has discussed this with her fiancé, John. It seems Alice read my expression. I've talked it over with John, and he agreed to let me decide if I'm so willing, she says. If he's okay with it, then. Alice genuinely wanted to wear a dress I designed, but there seemed to be another motive. I didn't want him to keep looking down on people from our workplace. I thought if he saw a beautiful dress, he might change his mind, she explains. So that's why you asked me to design it, I see, I said. When Alice reached out and grabbed my hand, I couldn't help but feel a jolt of surprise. It reminds me of the innocent feelings I had for my first love in school. Of course, I'll pay for it. Could you please design it? She asks hesitantly. But I wanted to do everything, not just the design. I believe the best results come from one person handling the entire process, and I wanted to do everything I could for her. No, I'll take care of everything. You're my friend, and I've been looking out for you. I want you to wear something truly special, I insist. But I think your modesty is a virtue, but is not what you need right now. This is an important moment in your life. You shouldn't have any regrets, I told her. Alice has always been like this. Choosing the cheapest item even when I offered to treat her, or only taking one piece of candy when she could have taken 10. Just because she didn't want to take away from others. There's no need to hold back for your wedding. It's once in a lifetime, I said. You're right. Could I ask you to do it, Ryan? I confidently assure her, you can count on me, tapping my chest. It's an honor to contribute to the start of my dear friend's new life. I should be the one thanking you, I said. Thank you so much, Ryan, she replied. So, From that day, in addition to my regular work, I started on Alice's wedding dress. Though it was challenging, the motivation was different because I knew the person who would wear it. Creating something for someone I know felt fresh since I had never experienced it before. Completing this wedding dress would teach me a lot for my future work. But at that time, I didn't know. Alice was enduring a lot for a marriage she didn't want. And I didn't realize she didn't eat much during breaks. That day, she went home and had a long talk with John about the wedding. Later, I heard John didn't want to invite us, her colleagues, to the wedding. He said people with lower education are surely lacking in class, and Alice had a hard time convincing him. The dressmaking process went smoothly, and a few months later, it was finished. When Alice tried it on, it fit perfectly. She looked the most radiant I had ever seen her. In the company changing room, wearing the newly made wedding dress and looking at herself in the full-length mirror, Alice's face lit up. "It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ryan." "I'm glad you like it," I replied. "It's so beautiful, I'm sure he'll have to let go of his prejudices. Thank you for all your hard work," she says, tears in her eyes. Seeing Alice tear up with gratitude, I chuckle and say, "You're overreacting." This is how she reacts even before the wedding, so I can only imagine what the actual day will be like. But I don't feel bad at all. It's a fresh feeling to have someone I know appreciate something I've made for a personal occasion. Afterward, Alice carefully folded the dress to show it to John. After bringing it home, she planned to try it on in front of her fiancé again. When Alice first asked me to design the dress months ago, I had a feeling everything might just work out. But it seems I was too optimistic. That night, a storm of negative reviews swept through an internet site. The photos posted were of the dress I made for Alice, but they showed it dirty, with bugs and trash on it. This sparked people, who weren't even customers, to write all kinds of untrue things, causing the company's reviews to spiral down. Arriving at work the next morning, my colleagues were furious over the comments on that site. Complaints about not being greeted when passing by, or that an employee is interacting with someone with bad behavior. What does that have to do with our work? Are these even true? The person posting claims they ordered a dress, but that's a lie. The photo they posted isn't one of our dresses. The names mentioned are from a different wedding dress company. These are employees from another company. It seemed the situation had worsened overnight. As I was trying to figure out what to do, Alice arrived at work. "I'm so sorry, everyone. It was John." She had already seen the reviews. She was apologizing profusely, her face pale. "No, Alice, it's not your fault. You were so happy yesterday, you couldn't have expected this to happen," I said. Though the colleagues accepted her apology, allowing the moment to pass, we couldn't let the company's reputation continue to fall. That afternoon, we decided to cancel one appointment to gather in the meeting room and think of a response to the reviews. So far, we had received only a few complaint calls, but they were starting to increase, potentially delaying our usual business. In the serious atmosphere, we brainstormed strategies together. During this, Alice seemed determined to take responsibility. "This is my responsibility. I have an idea. Please let me handle this," she said with a strong resolve. No matter what we said, she wouldn't be swayed. So, I decided to invoke the idea of shared responsibility. "Then, I'll help too," I said. "A senior should bear the burden of a junior's mistake." I couldn't let her face this alone. As a colleague, I need to teach a lesson to anyone who bullies my dear colleague. First, we needed to understand why Alice was engaged to John in the first place. The more I thought about it, the more I felt something was off about the two of them getting married. The next day around noon, I visited a well-known company in the area to solve the issue. a renowned company familiar to many residents here. Upon explaining my visit at the reception, I was directed to a spacious conference room. Inside, a man in his 60s waited for me. Mr. York, the company's president. The person who looked at me with a sharp gaze was one of the adults who had watched over me since I was a child. I often visited Mr. York's house as a child, where he would entertain me. "It's been a while. I hear you are having some troubles." Mr. York greeted me with a gentle smile, happy to see me. Despite my happiness, I knew this wasn't the time for reminiscing due to my current situation. "It's been a long time. Actually, I've been facing some challenges with a colleague." I began, summarizing recent events. Mr. York listened intently to my explanation, offering his full attention. After I finished speaking and took a moment to breathe, Mr. York began to speak. "Firstly, as a neighborly elder, I must say you've had it tough. When you enter society and start a business, you're bound to encounter troublesome individuals occasionally," he said. "Thank you. Have you experienced something similar, Mr. York?" "I've lived for 60 years and managed a company. Naturally, I've had my share of experiences." Living a long life surely brings a variety of experiences. From Mr. York's heartfelt tone, the hardships he faced were evident. He sighed deeply, shaking his head before addressing me again. "I'd like to help, but as someone who leads a company, I can't act on personal feelings alone. You understand that we can't spend time on mere consultations, right?" "Of course," I replied, acknowledging his position. Mr. York had always been kind, but he also understood the importance of discretion. Now that we were both adults in society, I couldn't simply rely on our neighborly relationship unconditionally. I prepared myself to make a proposal to Mr. York. "Mr. York, I'm interested in doing business with your company," I said. "Let's hear the details." Typically, such matters would be handled by the sales team, but today was an exception. I had explained the situation to my company's staff, and it was decided that I would handle this negotiation. Partly to resolve Alice's issue, and also for mutual benefit. Our sales department had long aimed to engage with Mr. York's esteemed company, but had never succeeded. Therefore, a change in approach was decided upon to make a new appeal. I proceeded to explain our proposed business terms to Mr. York. "That's the proposal. Would you please consider it? This company deals with high-quality thread. Using this thread to create wedding dresses would undoubtedly result in superior products." Considering Alice's situation, it was clear that establishing a connection with a renowned company would be beneficial. "Understood. Let's proceed with a deal between our companies," Mr. York agreed. "Really? Thank you." While I was relieved at the success, questions lingered. Why had it worked this time, when all previous attempts had failed, after just one meeting? It was unlike Mr. York to make decisions based on personal feelings. I hate to ask, but why have you decided to have a deal with us now? Our company's attempts at negotiation had previously been unsuccessful," I inquired. "It's because I appreciate individuals who work hard," he replied. "Excuse me." Mr. York, with a smile, explained to a puzzled me. "From our conversation earlier, I sensed a great passion for wedding dresses. It was clear you spend your days deeply engaged with them. Perhaps that's why." Though I had indeed been preoccupied with dresses due to recent business, I wondered if that was really enough. Sensing my thoughts, Mr. York continued. "It's simple, yet important. You've demonstrated dedication to providing quality products to your customers by earnestly engaging with the dresses. That's what I deemed you a trustworthy business partner." Having no previous sales experience and never having been evaluated in such a manner by a business partner, I felt awkward yet flattered. Filled with happiness and embarrassment, I managed to say, "Thank you." After finalizing preparations for a comeback against John, the wedding day finally arrived. Though not listed on the invitation list, Mr. York was also invited to the venue. However, there was no sign of him yet. Perhaps there had been some trouble. While I wondered what to do next, I witnessed Alice doing something astonishing. Normally, she should have entered the venue after the ceremony had started, but she appeared in a tattered wedding dress. It was the dress I had made, but it remained as it had been after being defaced by John. The guests began to murmur among themselves. Soon after, John arrived at the venue, dressed as a groom, looking flustered. His attire was perfectly normal, making the contrast with Alice's appearance strikingly evident. "Alice, I was looking everywhere for you, and to find you here." It seemed he had been searching for her, panting as he loudly scolded her. "Why are you wearing such a dress? What happened to the one I prepared?" But Alice, undaunted by John's attitude, stared back at him defiantly. This seemed to intimidate him, showing his anger. "I'm sorry for not wearing the dress you prepared, but I had always planned to wear this dress, hadn't I? But that dress was made by a high school dropout. It's not suitable for someone as beautiful as you. I want to wear the dress my colleague made for me at our wedding," Alice stated firmly, though her feelings didn't seem to reach John. "Before you defaced it, that dress was beautiful, regardless of the maker's education background." Hearing Alice's words, he scoffed at the dress disdainfully. "Such a dress only brings poverty. I disposed of it so that you, being kind-hearted, wouldn't have to wear it." "How could you say that? It was made with so much effort." "So what? This isn't child's play. Effort means nothing if the customers aren't satisfied." The venue fell silent as the two argued. Among those gathered at the venue, there likely wasn't a single person who wasn't focused on these two. Alice narrowed her eyes and glared at John. He hadn't expected such defiance from a bride just before her wedding. John faltered and stepped back. "Even if that were true, it doesn't justify ordering a dress from someone else when you've already asked someone to make one." "What?" "I looked into it after you defaced Ryan's dress. I found an order for a wedding dress from another company on your computer. You never intended for me to wear Ryan's dress." Hearing Alice's shocking revelation, John's face turned pale. "No, it's a misunderstanding. Listen to me," he pleaded. But she showed no mercy. Alice raised her voice so everyone in the venue could hear her clearly. "I asked you multiple times if you had any specific requests for the dress, yet you, who said I could do as I liked, criticized the finished product. Isn't that wrong?" "Stop. Don't say any more. It's almost time for the wedding." The atmosphere in the venue was changing. Those who had been expressing their congratulations were now looking puzzled, and some looked John with disdain. Alice continued to reveal facts unknown to the guests. She exposed John's deliberate sabotage of the dress, his negative online reviews, and his attempts to bribe many into giving my company bad ratings. When John, at his limit, tried to silence Alice by force, Mr. York arrived. "It's not becoming of a groom, about to be married, to forcibly silence the bride," he said, his voice calm but carrying. Mr. York, with a commanding presence, approached us with measured steps. "Sorry, Ryan. I'm a bit late from the time I said I'd be here. I couldn't overlook a child who got hurt on the way," he explained. "It's okay, that can't be helped," I replied. "I appreciate your understanding. It reminded me of when you were young, bringing back some nostalgic feelings," Mr. York shared, lightening the tense atmosphere with his casual conversation. "You're not recalling any embarrassing stories, are you?" "Don't worry. I only remember the time you wet your bed and cried after your mother scolded you," he joked, blurring the line between sincerity and humor. His words seemed to relax those who had been anxiously watching the unfolding drama. While it was important to stand up to John, We didn't want to leave the guests with any trauma. I had to thank Mr. York's experienced handling of the situation. Regaining my composure, I stood in front of the astonished John, who was asking, "Why is Mr. York, the president of a renowned company, here?" "What? You got something to complain about?" "No, but I think you should check your phone right now. Is your company okay?" "What?" Caught in the midst of chaos, John likely never expected to hear such a thing. Stunned, he started checking his phone with a look of confusion on his face. He turned pale seconds later. What's happening? He was likely receiving notifications of contract cancellations from various companies, all orchestrated by Mr. York. Your company has been undermining rivals in various ways, but it seems your behind-the-scenes efforts were too sloppy, Mr. York revealed. No way. I felt bad for the victims, so I meddled a bit. Though, for you, it might not seem like much. Just an old man conducting some investigations and sharing the results with those affected by unjust bad reviews. Mr. York's company excels at monitoring the movements of other companies. Perhaps this is influenced by his own belief that he possesses no special talents. Claiming no knack for trends or business opportunities, he is compensated for his shortcomings by scrutinizing the actions of other companies. Maybe that's why he's so concerned about young people who are struggling despite lacking talent. Mr. York fixed his gaze on John as if testing him. Well, what will you do? Had John sincerely apologized there, Mr. York probably would have forgiven him. Alice, though not marrying John, would likely not have grown to dislike him any more than she already did. But clad in his groom's attire, John chose not to do so. He twisted his face in anger and rebuked Alice. "It's your fault. You're the one who went crying to Mr. York. Do you never consider reflecting on your actions, John? I'm not wrong, am I? What's wrong with taking down a rival? After all, in this world, whoever takes advantage of someone wins. Working hard only makes you a fool." Overwhelmed by anger, John seemed to have lost himself. As he advanced on Alice, I intervened to stop him. "I shouldn't have engaged myself to someone like you." "How can you say that? Don't you love Alice?" "Love her? If I knew she was such a nasty person, I wouldn't have dated her." His abusive words were unbearable. I didn't want to leave him there any longer. "If I had known it would come to this, I wouldn't have cornered your parents' company." Then I remembered the story Alice had told me after our meeting in the conference room. Her parents ran a company that suddenly started receiving bad press. It seems John reached out to help Alice and her family then. That was the reason they started dating, but the initial cause was unimaginable. "I thought if I did you a favor, you'd easily fall for it. I was deceived. I didn't know you'd be such a hassle." I couldn't stand to listen any longer. I grabbed John's hand, trying to drag him out of the venue. "Don't hurt her anymore. The situation you're in isn't anyone else's fault but your own doing." John resisted, trying not to be thrown out, but then Mr. York roared, "Enough with the poor Grace." A loud voice that seemed to come from his gut made the air tremble. The voice echoed throughout the venue, making even someone who hadn't done anything wrong like me want to shrink away. "If you can't admit your own mistakes and blame others, you can dream on about growing. Go back to the start and come back again." Having never been yelled at in his life, John sat down with a pathetic heap in a daze. With his courage gone, he crawled out of the venue. Afterward, John broke off his engagement with Alice. The last time Alice was seen, she looked haggard from dealing with her company's bad reputation. It seems the wedding incident had long-lasting effects, and a year later, John's company went bankrupt. Having lost his job, he moved back to his rural hometown and rarely went outside. Rumor has it, he spends his days feeling small and insignificant. Meanwhile, We began trading with Mr. Yerk's company. We were able to offer even higher quality dresses. With more work coming in, we became busy again but managed to get by with new hires. Alice, carrying a big trauma from her relationship with John, gradually started to regain her energy. Lately, she's been showing more smiles, and it seems like her heart's wounds might fully heal sooner rather than later. If she decides to have a wedding, I'd like to make her dress. Assuming she agrees. If I said I was your first love, would you date me? What? Just kidding. Please continue to support me. Yes. Become a dependable colleague and help me with work. At that time, I couldn't have imagined that a few years later, she and I would get married. And she would wear a wedding dress as my wife.